Welcome back to the Midnight Narrator, where the mundane masks the macabre and the familiar becomes a source of terror. Tonight we explore a chilling tale of a simple babysitting job that spirals into a nightmare of misinterpretation, hidden truths, and a terrifying encounter with something that defies explanation. Prepare to question your senses and confront the unsettling reality that not everything is as it seems. Join me as we unravel the disturbing secrets of Nutri-Paws. Turn down the lights, listen closely, and prepare to confront a horror that lurks just beneath the surface of the ordinary. Remember to care for Barnaby's special blend, Nutri-Paws, around midday. The bag is in the utility closet, and his bowl is kept by the sink. I stared at the message, a mix of bewilderment and unease settling over me. I know what you might think. Just feed the pet. But Barnaby isn't a typical pet. He's a 7-year-old child. To explain my situation, I'd agreed to look after Mrs. Dubois' son, Barnaby, as a favor to my mother, who was eager to become better acquainted with our new, rather peculiar neighbor. This wasn't a paid job. It was an attempt to foster neighborly relations. Mrs. Dubois was distinct. My brief interactions with her had left a lasting impression. The first occurred when I saw her meticulously shredding floral-scented bath bombs onto my mother's baking sheet. She'd given us a box of these bath bombs as a welcome gift. I was working on a project in a spot where she couldn't see me, but I could observe her chatting with my mother in the living room. When my mother went to the basement for a few minutes, I watched as Mrs. Dubois took a bath bomb and began shredding it onto the baking sheet my mother had just used for making cookies. I looked away briefly, but Mrs. Dubois had cleaned up the mess before my mother returned. I politely declined the cookies later. The second time I saw Mrs. Dubois tasting Nutri-Paws pet food during a visit to her home. She'd gone to the kitchenette to prepare drinks while we waited in the den. I needed to retrieve something from my bag, which was near the kitchenette, and I saw her taking kibble from the bag and putting it in her mouth. I politely refused any refreshments she offered. This woman was odd, and I wished my mother would be less enthusiastic about this new friendship. But they'd become close, and now I was responsible for Barnaby. When I'd asked my mother why we hadn't met Barnaby before, she'd said he was visiting his grandparents. She'd also given me a hastily scribbled note with instructions. I wished she'd texted me, but she preferred handwritten notes. Fortunately, Mrs. Dubois was more modern and agreed to send me the essential details via messaging. The arrangement was for me to watch Barnaby from late morning until late afternoon. I hadn't even glanced at my mother's note, as Mrs. Dubois had promised to send me instructions as needed. I went to their house feeling apprehensive. I first saw Barnaby in the sunroom, engrossed in building something with colorful blocks. The light streaming through the windows was bright, but he didn't seem to mind. Mrs. Dubois had left the key under a flower pot by the back door and departed quickly, without a proper introduction. I felt a wave of sympathy for Barnaby. After ensuring the back door was locked, I went into the sunroom. My mother had mentioned Barnaby was 7, and he seemed like a typical 7-year-old. He was focused on his construction, wearing a green sweater and corduroy pants. I introduced myself, and he responded politely, his attention mostly on his blocks. He appeared comfortable, so I went to the study to read, telling him to let me know if he needed anything. I was absorbed in my book when Mrs. Dubois's text arrived around 11:15 a.m. It was the strange message about feeding Barnaby pet food. The message made me deeply uneasy. I wondered if she was joking and cautiously checked the utility closet. I hoped my memory of her tasting pet food was a figment of my imagination. But there it was, a brown bag of Nutri-Paws with a picture of a playful terrier. I hesitated, unsure what to do. Should I contact my mother, take Barnaby and leave, or follow the instructions? Given my past experiences, this wouldn't be the first time he'd had it. My thoughts were interrupted by a rhythmic tapping at a nearby window. I froze. I quickly found Barnaby and asked about the tapping. Perhaps it was a bird. But Barnaby's response was unsettling. "It's the Clockwork man," he whispered. "What?" "He taps when he wants to come in. Don't let him." He went back to his blocks. I was unnerved and wanted to leave, but I had to ask. "Does your mother give you Nutri-Paws? I asked carefully. Barnaby looked at me and nodded. I took a deep breath and told him we were going to my house. He was clearly being neglected. I couldn't leave him there. I took his hand and started to lead him out, assuring him we'd get help. But he quietly said it wouldn't matter. I stopped. He was trembling, tears in his eyes. That's not my real mother. My mother vanished last spring. The Clockwork man took her. And if you tell anyone, he'll find you too. What are you talking about? I whispered, my mind racing. It's true. It used to be just me and my mom, the real Iris Dubois. She was normal. But there was one rule. I wasn't allowed near the attic. She said something lived up there and we had to stay away. I heard clicking and whirring sounds from up there. One evening, I saw her standing at the foot of the attic stairs, her face pale in the dim light filtering from the hallway. Her eyes were wide with a terror I'd never seen before. A scraping sound echoed from above, like metal on wood, followed by a series of clicks and whirs. Then, a hand, not flesh and bone but something metallic and jointed, reached down from the darkness of the attic. It grasped her wrist with surprising force, the metal fingers digging into her skin, and pulled her upward into the shadows. I stared at Barnaby, a chill running down my spine. He continued, I knew it wasn't my mother. My real mommy was gone. And I knew that whatever it was imitating her. It's gotten better at it over the months. We've moved a few times. It always tries to make friends with the new neighbors. But there's always a locked room and I hear the clicking. He finished, sobbing. I felt a deep dread. I wasn't worried for him. I was afraid for myself. I'd walked into something terrifying. Barnaby went back to the sunroom, likely to find some comfort in his toys. I knew I had to escape. I was about to leave when I heard a car in the driveway. Mrs. Dubois, the thing, was back. I froze as the key turned in the lock. It opened the door and the thing entered, smiling brightly. Hello, dear. How was everything? I apologize for the early return. The market was closed unexpectedly, so I was able to come home sooner. I trust you and Barnaby had a pleasant time. The thing grinned. I remained silent. It moved toward the storage room, still chatting. I hope Barnaby ate his midday meal. He can be a picky eater. It stopped at the storage room door, a confused look on its face. Did you not let Barnaby out of the storage room? What? I managed to say. It turned the handle and opened the door. I screamed and tried to run. Then I heard a small bark behind me. I froze and turned. A small, fluffy dog ran to me, wagging its tail. I tried to understand. I expected a monstrous figure, but nothing happened. The dog greeted me happily and Mrs. Dubois watched, looking concerned. Did you forget to feed him? Barnaby must be hungry, she said, pointing to the dog. What? Barnaby is your son, isn't he? I call him my son, but he's my pet. Why are you asking such a strange question? But, did you think I had a human child? I've never been married. I've only had one companion for 7 years, my beloved Barnaby. Let me get him his food. He must be starving. She went to the kitchenette. I excused myself and fled. I confronted my mother. Did you know Barnaby was a dog? I demanded. Of course, why are you asking such a ridiculous question? Wasn't that obvious? It was the first thing I wrote on the note you didn't read. I was speechless. If Barnaby was a dog, who had I been talking to? I told my mother about Mrs. Dubois' strange actions. She only chuckled. I asked her to shred the bath bombs for potpourri, and she tastes the pet food to make sure it's fresh. It's a habit she has. You're imagining things. My mother pointed to a framed illustration on the table. As soon as I saw it, I felt a chill. It was a picture of the boy I'd spoken to that day, and in the corner it was signed, The Clockwork Man. The illustration hangs in my mind's eye, the boy's hollow gaze following me everywhere I go. I've stopped visiting Mrs. Dubois, avoiding her like a plague. My mother thinks I'm imagining things, but she didn't see the terror in that boy's eyes. She didn't hear the tapping. And sometimes, in the dead of night, I hear a faint clicking sound, not from the window, but from inside the walls. And there we conclude our unsettling journey into Nutri-Paws, a story that delves into the chilling consequences of miscommunication and the terrifying power of suggestion. What happens when our perceptions are twisted and the lines between reality and delusion blur? How do we escape a horror that has already taken root in our minds? Share your thoughts and theories in the comments below. If this tale has left you with a lingering sense of unease, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and activate the notification bell to join us on future journeys into the darkness. This is the Midnight Narrator, signing off. Until next time, remember, sometimes the most terrifying monsters are the ones we create in our own minds.